Understanding the composition, part B. We're going to pick up with where we left off by looking at the second part of our composition, which is the body. Now we're only going to mention this here because we spent all last week talking about it. We talked about what makes a good body paragraph, and it is a tech paragraph. It has a topic sentence, it has evidence, it has commentary, and a clincher sentence. Then we talked last week as well about what characteristics or quality a good body paragraph has to have. And the first one was unity. And unity is when all the sentences in the paragraph work together as a unit to express or to support one main idea. And then we talked about coherence, where all the ideas within the composition are strongly connected with logical progression, organizational patterns, direct reference, and or transitional expressions. So you can refer to last week's notes to add information to this part of the body. What we want to look at, though, is the conclusion, because the conclusion is just as important as your introduction, because this is a place where the reader understands that everything is tied up and fits together to thoroughly explain your point. There's 6 strategies or ways that you can write a conclusion, or you can combine any of the 6. So first we could restate your main idea or your thesis statement. We could refer to the introduction. We could end with a thoughtful comment, a personal reaction, or look to the future. You could end with a quote. You could end with a call to action. You could end with summarizing your main points developed in the body. So you could use any of these strategies or a combination of them. One that I suggest, and it's probably the easiest, but is to combine 3 of them with the word tie. Tie being an acronym to help you remember what would be in your conclusion. The T would stand for restating your main idea or your thesis statement. The I would be restating the main ideas or summarizing the main points developed in your body. And the E would be a call to action. So you see that is a strategy where you can combine 3 of the 6. But let's look at each of these 3 and look at an example. And what I want you to do in your notes is write a kind of an explanation of what you would need to do if you were going to use this technique. You do not need to write the examples. So let's look at the first one. To restate the main idea or the main thesis statement. Here you're going to say it again but in different words, and like I said before, it's the easiest conclusion to write. If you use this technique, you have to use your thesis statement at the beginning of your conclusion. So let's look at this example. Is the Cadillac Ranch art? That is not for any one person to decide yes or no. However, if you are ever passing through Amarillo, Texas, why not make a stop at this roadside attraction and let your own eyes, mind, and heart continue the debate for yourself. Just watch your step for cacti and rattlers. So here we are restating your main thesis. The next technique is to refer to the introduction, but it's something other than the thesis statement. So let's look at this example. Returning home from my trip to the National Yo-Yo Museum, I searched in the attic, under the bed, and at the back of the closet, but found no yo-yos. Like fairies in Peter Pan, maybe yo-yos disappear when we stop believing in them. A 256-pound yo-yo demands attention and belief. Thanks to the people in Chico, California, though, this American treasure will continue to spark magic in all who see it. So again, it's a reference to the introduction without referring to the thesis statement. Our third strategy would be to end with a thoughtful comment, a personal reaction, or a look to the future. This is a kind of an extension of your thesis. Our example, like Swampy the Gator in Christmas, Florida, or Salem Sue the Cow in New Salem, North Dakota, roadside attractions are more than just humorous attempts at being the biggest and the best. They are icons of pride in the community. While they may not have the longevity of the pyramids or Stonehenge, They should stand as reminders to future generations of who we were and what we considered important. So again, there's a making a statement and a look toward the future. A fourth strategy is to use a quote, and this is kind of a nice ending to a composition, but you have to make sure your quote is relevant and fits into your topic. Roman Gray wrote in Promise at Dawn that humor is the affirmation of dignity, a declaration of man's superiority to all that befalls him. The dignity of Enterprise, Alabama is evident in the Boll Weevil Monument, which remains the centerpiece of the downtown district. Through humor, the people of Enterprise have shown their superiority to the 1950 agricultural disaster that befell them. So you can see here that the writer of this essay chose to end with a quote, and it's kind of a nice finish to the essay. It's one of your options. Then you could have a call to action, which is something that you specifically want your reader to do because of the information that you've shared with them. Do not let America's proud tradition of roadside attractions fade into the past like its drive-in movies or the Burma Shave signs. Do your part to maintain any giant fiberglass animals or balls of twine in your town. Support retailers with colossal muffler men and anyone with the audacity to place giant pink inflatable gorillas in bikinis anywhere on their establishment. If your community does not have a world's largest, don't you think it perhaps time it did? So here you can see it is ending with a call to action and a little bit of humor tied in. So that would be an option for ending an essay. And then the last one that's pretty straightforward is to summarize the main points developed in the body. This is to re-paraphrase the topic sentence. And this is doable. It's the easiest, but it's also probably one of the most boring. Let's look at this example. Roadside attractions serve a purpose in asking the motorist speeding down at 70+ miles an hour to slow down, stop by, and take a moment to see that our communities are more than just highway markers, gas stations, and blurs in the periphery. Giant yo-yos invite you to learn the history of this popular toy. Salem Sioux and Swampy the Gator tell of the local economy or wildlife. Boll Weevil monuments tell the tale of perseverance in the face of adversity. However, behind it all are the people of America you might not ordinarily meet. As you stop and share a laugh with a fellow traveler or listen to a local tell his or her story, you are enriched in ways you would never have been if the roadside attraction had not prompted you to stop. Okay, so this one is an option to summarize the main points, but it is also one that is a little bit wordy and maybe a little bit redundant because you've already said that before in your essay, but it is an option. So conclusion reviewed is just as important as your introduction. It's where the reader sees that everything has been tied up and explained thoroughly. The 6 strategies that we mentioned were restating the main idea, referring to the introduction, ending with a thoughtful comment or a look to the future, using a quote, ending with a call to action, or summarizing the main point developed in the body. All right, so we've looked at the introduction, 6 ways we can do the introduction. We've looked at the body. We briefly reviewed what we talked about last week. We looked at the conclusion, 6 ways that you could approach a conclusion and write a conclusion. And the next thing that we want to look at is using a basic framework, putting it all together to maybe get a graphical representation of how to write your essay. And it's going to be a 5-paragraph essay structure. Now, freshmen will stick pretty close to 5-paragraph essay structure. We won't venture too far astray from doing 5 paragraphs. When you are a sophomore, your writing becomes a little bit more complicated. You're doing your research project and you're going to expand this basic structure. But we are going to review it again so that we can understand that even if we only have 5 paragraphs, we have a structure. We can use that same structure if we have 7 paragraphs, 9 paragraphs, 10 paragraphs. It's a basic structure that you can build on. So as we mentioned in the first part, the major sections of our composition are our introduction, our body, and our conclusion. Now, if we're sticking to 5 paragraphs, notice on the right-hand side, 1 paragraph is going to be our introduction, 3 paragraphs will be the body, and 1 paragraph will be the conclusion. Now, if you're writing a larger essay, you still have these 3 parts, but you will have more paragraphs within each section. Usually you'll only have 1 paragraph for your introduction, though. So our introduction, remember our acronym was HIT. And this is for your most basic writing. You can expand on it and use all the techniques that we talked about, but basically it needs all these parts. Our hook is going to catch the reader's attention. Then I is an introduction to the topic and creating of tone. Remember, tone is the attitude that the writer has toward the topic and toward the audience. And then our T is our thesis statement, our controlling sentence that controls our whole paper. It has our topic and our main ideas included in that one statement. Then we look at our body. And remember last week we looked at a solid tech paragraph, and a tech paragraph, which each of our body paragraphs has to be, has a topic sentence that controls the idea of the paragraph itself. It has an evidence and commentary that is specific facts and details about the paragraph topic, and then the elaboration, how it all ties together. And then the C is our clincher sentence. And remember that our body paragraph particularly has to have unity. Everything has to fit in, be one unit, and it has to have coherence through some kind of organizational pattern and transitions. Then our third section that we talked about was conclusion. And conclusion is usually also 1 paragraph, even in the longer essays that we write. And one suggestion for conclusion was the acronym TIE, and it put 3 of the techniques that were mentioned in this lesson together. They were restating the thesis statement, restating or talking briefly again about your main ideas, which would be the body topic sentences that control your main ideas, and then to extend with some kind of call to action, what you want people to do because of your information that you put in your paper. Or your extension could be a statement and a look to the future. You could end with a quote. So there's all kinds of variety of ways that you could end your paper, but it has to have a good solid conclusion. So this wraps up this lesson on understanding the composition. It has the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So please take these notes and then do the little follow-up with the note verification and bring any questions you have to class.